Hey there folks, I'm Mark in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. I expected this week to be less normal than it is. I guess some of that might be the result of Lil Wayne not getting the album bomb that I was predicting. I at least thought more of his collaborations would get here on streaming alone, but if we're looking for a point in after a surprisingly hectic beginning of this year, settling back into some sort of routine, kind of interesting, especially when I'm not sure when that next major disruption might come. Hell, these days it could come at any time. And that is kind of relevant when you take a look at our top 10, which thanks to frankly insane YouTube margins right now, backed up by the radio and sales growth, The Box by Roddy Ricch rules the number one with an iron fist. I was skeptical at first when people were predicting this would stick around for months. Now I'm pretty much convinced it just might. And it kind of strands Life is Good by Future featuring Drake at number 2, which just cannot keep up in any category despite making some respectable radio gains. Of course, it's not going to be threatening Circles by Post Malone on the radio anytime soon at number 3, which thanks to a mild sales revival actually retook the top spot there, elbowing back Memories by Maroon 5, which started slipping in all categories down to number 4. Good. Now next up, to my welcome surprise, Dance Monkey by Tones and I went up to number 5, because even as radio growth has slowed down to a crawl, sales and streaming are actually still pretty robust. Nice to see. Actually overtook Someone You Love by Louis Capaldi at number 6, which is bleeding hard in all categories, especially sales, and is actually in danger of being overtaken by Roxanne by Arizona Zervas up to number 7, also thanks to stability on streaming and solid radio growth. Hell, it overtook 10,000 Hours by Dan and Shay and Justin Bieber, which slid down to number 8 on real radio losses, even despite an okay week on streaming of all things. Now finally, holding position, we've got Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa at number 9, which still has radio momentum and seems to be shoring up its sales and streaming, thank God. And Everything I Wanted by Billie Eilish at number 10, which despite relatively underwhelming sales and streaming, it's getting a major radio push. Interesting to see how long that'll be lasting. I'm just curious. Now, on a very different note, our losers and dropouts, they seem a little bit more scattershot, with the only two in the latter category being Panini by Lil Nas X finally making its predicted exit, and Graveyard by Halsey as her album traction evaporates further. I mean, kind of a shame. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I thought that song had more legs. But our losers are also pretty scattered. Off the debut, both Anyone by Demi Lovato and BITCH by Megan Thee Stallion took sharp hits to 56 and 59 alike. Jerry Sprunger by Tory Lanez and T-Pain skidded to 92 off the return, and we saw the gains for Nobody But You by Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani down at 62, No Idea by Don Toliver at 78, and Homecoming Queen by Kelsey Ballerini at 86. Knew that was too good to last. Then, following its mild album bomb, Good News by the late Mac Miller makes its slow decline to 82, and the rest? Well, Pussy Fairy by Jhené Aiko fell to 66, Foot Soul Shuffle 2020 by Lil Uzi Vert continued its wild run to 70, Riding Roads by Dustin Lynch lost off of its album boost to 77, did anybody care that album came out? And then we had Rare by Selena Gomez going down to 97, and You Played by Moneybagg Yo featuring Lil Baby went down to 98. What I find more interesting though is the dip for Start With Me by Roddy Ricch and Gunna. I know, a bit of an older song off of what Roddy Ricch has in circulation, but you would think the success of The Box would give it legs a little bit longer. Might be telling there, I don't know. Anyway, I bring all this up because our gains and returns are hot garbage, so let's blow through this fast. In the latter category, Orange Soda by Baby Keem makes the unwelcome return at 100, and Heartless by Diplo and Morgan Wallen's back at 75. And yet it somehow only gets worse, because not only is Best on Earth by Russ and Bia up to 52, Kinfolks by Sam Hunt suddenly got a surge to 34. I have to assume this is rooted in the industry in Nashville moving up behind him for the album push. Why do I have the deep-seated dread that this album run is gonna be fucking miserable? Whatever. Anyway, let's put all of that out of our mind for now and start off with our new arrivals, beginning with number 93, Get Me by Justin Bieber featuring Kehlani. You get me. Do you think that Justin Bieber realizes that Yummy is terrible and then actually gets why it's underperforming generally? I ask this honestly because superstars like him, they're often insulated from true fan reaction and backlash. And when I see the second single being with Kehlani, who I can't remotely imagine having any sort of thing interesting with Justin Bieber whatsoever ever since Kyle's Play With Me, I'll admit it, expectations rock bottom again. And you know what? Look, at least in the production, this is better than Yummy, but that's also because from Justin Bieber's cadence to Boy Wonda's presence in the rubbery atmospherics of the mix, this sounds like a Drake leftover that swapped out the rap verse for Kehlani and less lyrical detail. Now, I will say that Kehlani brings more personality than Justin Bieber overall, at least until he actually opens up for a surprisingly decent falsetto on the outro, but the song actually works a bit better than I expected in describing the odd sense of surprise that comes with finding some legit chemistry. And not much beyond that an attempt at the hookup, but for a low-key second single, it's not bad. I mean, Bieber's not that interesting, but I don't know, we'll see how well it lasts. Next, number 89, Nice to Meet Ya by Meghan Trainor featuring Nicki Minaj. I'll be honest, I'm shocked there's any songs from Meghan Trainor's newest album at all, even with their last-ditch publicity blitz to draw attention to it. And while I could complain about this jacking the title from Niall Horan's much better song, I think my larger problems come with the painfully cheap-sounding fizzy scratch of clapping percussion and synthetic layers drizzled all over Meghan Trainor's voice. And that's where we get the farty squonk on the hook before the popping bass of that drop. All the production just sounds like flat garbage. And really, this is the backtrack to a flex from both of them? I mean, I kind of get it coming from Nicki, who is frankly trying way harder than she needs to, and can kind of handle off-kilter or weird production, but Meghan Trainor's flat nasal tone isn't complemented by anything here, and her flex feels both basic and bizarrely awkward. Nothing flatters her whatsoever. So yeah, while it's not the worst song from that Meghan Trainor album, it's still pretty bad, even with Nicki Minaj's presence, and frankly, there's no money in this sticking around. Next, number 88, Funeral by Lil Wayne.
Yeah. Closed casket as usual.
So we didn't really get an album bomb from Lil Wayne this week. In fact, of the songs that blew up, it looks like we got the case of people sampling the first 4 and then bouncing out before the experience got way too draining. So, alright, let's start off with the album opener, Funeral, which is one of the better cuts thanks to the cascading keys and the strings that tilt into slightly darker guitar tones and an oversaturation of gothic, bassy reverb, which then lets Lil Wayne drop into a pretty murderous intro. Now, I will say that for as many people as he's trying to gun down, we're not so much getting punchlines or a crescendo, some of his specialties, and outside of the pretty amusing tomato references in terms of headshots, the song doesn't really explode or show a lot of interesting wordplay. But hey, just an intro, I guess? That can be fine enough if it builds into something that's better down the line, right? Well, number 87, Mamma Mia by Lil Wayne.
Carter here and look for you. You niggas talking too much shit. I'm about to find a good plumber.
Okay, honest question. Why does it sound like we got a PC music synthesizer behind this rumbling trap beat for Lil Wayne to spit against? And why does it never switch up beyond being an off-key headache? I get that it's supposed to sound extra and wild to match what Lil Wayne's talking about, including titty fucking your baby mama while she's breastfeeding your kid. Ew. But am I the only one who hears his voice, especially his more emotive second verse, sounding a little bit like Kendrick Lamar? Or how the shit puns that made their return on the first verse, along with treating women as so disposable even as he douches their vaginas and then cannonballs in their face? Now, that's not saying there aren't a couple good lines here. Big rocks in my mouth can't tell how many asteroids I ate. That might be the nicest grill line I've heard in years. And you know what? Nobody can fault Lil Wayne's creativity here. That's always gonna come through. But when paired with that production and his very halting flow where he constantly starts and stops himself, I find myself not really enjoying the excess as much as I would like to. So, no, not really good. Not for me here. Next, number 69, King of My City by A Boogie with the Hoodie. Granted, going from too much lyrical personality to none at all is absolutely a downgrade, but I'll give A Boogie a bit of credit for trying to focus on a single topic, emphasis on trying, with focusing on dominating the Bronx against some jagged, desaturated guitars and a sharper trap skitter. So, decent production, an okay melody, sure, But we're stuck with A Boogie, who thinks that dropping out his voice behind his backing vocals for half of the hook is an interesting switch up, and the rest of the song he can shout out brand names and shoot people. And look, at this many years in the mainstream with the lead up to a new album, and with rappers who can flip up melodic flows into more interesting progressions like Roddy Ricch, A Boogie runs a serious risk of falling out of the limelight outside New York if the content doesn't evolve or deepen a little bit. Because while it's fine, generally catchy, like most of his stuff, I'm gonna forget this in record time. Just saying. Number 61, Mahogany by Lil Wayne.
Pressing fast forward, I race a NASCAR transport, just what you asked for. Don't ask me what I asked for if you can't answer. Now who them Zans for?
I've seen this song get a lot of praise from people who like Funeral, and I'm a little bit perplexed as to why that is. The minimalist crooning sample is not bad flipped into that trap beat, and Lil Wayne's flow is pretty tight, but am I the only one who feels like he's sounding more like Drake than himself in the flow? Especially given the interpolation of Family Feud, one of his own songs, with Drake. But outside of that, what is there really much to say about his bragging here about being faster and ahead of the curve than everyone, when in execution it feels like he's looking backwards? Now, it does have two legit good references, one to shooting Satan in the face, and the other saying that he's got napkins to waste, which is the sort of great fine detail that stands out amidst the other standard flexes, but I don't know, outside of that, not quite feeling more of it. Just saying. Next up, number 60, Physical by Dua Lipa. Okay, following in the wake of Don't Start Now, which thankfully grew on me, I was curious what was going to be coming next from Dua Lipa, especially as she is the sort of pop star that I'd like to have staying power, and I'm not at all surprised that she's doubling down on the sharper, 80s-inspired pop groove that builds a song that's openly interpolating the Olivia Newton-John track of the same name. I mean, it's kind of obvious. But unlike that song, she's ramped up the tempo considerably, and while she herself made the comparison to Flashdance, with the slightly eerier synth and the darker warbles, it kind of reminds me a little bit more of Maniac by Michael Cimbello, and yet in comparison with the huge swell of a similar retro song like Blinding Lights from The Weeknd, I'm a little bit more lukewarm on Physical, most because it feels like the intensity doesn't really ramp up properly in the melody until the bridge and that final hook. Hell, if there was a song that could have used that roaring solo on the outro, it might have been this one. But as it is, I don't know, it took a while for Don't Start Now to really grow on me fully, so I will say this is really good, but I'm not sure it's great just yet. Get back to me in a month or so, that's all I'm saying. Number 50, Only the Young by Taylor Swift. So one of the themes in that new Taylor Swift documentary was her steady desire, but real conflict in possibly getting political, especially given the broad stripes of her image as the American girl, where she came from in country and risking that sort of backlash, she's seen it before, and the very real risk of alienating a big target audience. But along with the doc, we did get a song that's clearly trying to place her in more of that territory, and okay, let me get the obvious criticism out of the way. The kid's choir's on the nose, kind of forced. If you were expecting Taylor Swift to get direct and detailed as can be her hallmark in her best work, didn't happen. The song is more about looking to the next generation who have been consistently outnumbered at the polls and not seen any sort of real systemic change, especially from a current establishment content to do nothing or go backwards or prop up an ignorant or corrupt status quo. Which really, it's about as broad and non-confrontational as you can get in this territory, but since mobilizing our generation to vote generally favors one side over the other side's voter suppression, it'll be seen as more political than it actually is, but in general a good positive message. And honestly, when it comes to the tune and production, a pretty good song as well. The clicking oscillation and deeper kick drum kind of reminds me a little bit of Beautiful People by Ed Sheeran and Khalid, but the sweeping swell behind it does build into the brighter keyboard line pretty well. It does feel a little short in order to explode properly, but as it is, yeah, you know, it's a good song. And for a loose, non-album cut, I like this. Check it out. And finally, number 33, I'd Do It by Lil Wayne featuring Big Sean and Lil Baby.
Shit. You in my way need to move, bitch.
Am I the only one kind of surprised this is the only collaboration from Funeral that actually charted, likely most in the presence of Lil Baby of all people? Who to the surprise of nobody is the worst part of the song as he sleepwalks through another verse that's utterly forgettable. It's almost as if so many rappers took Lil Wayne's flow, approach, and auto-tune mumble and have proceeded to say nothing with it. or something like that. And if you're gonna build so much of the song around a hook from Big Sean, one of his catchphrases no less, you couldn't even bother to give him a verse? Even opposite that underweight click of the hi-hat and the faded melody? Cause then we got Lil Wayne busting down a noose, putting it on his neck, now he's a nuisance. Get it? Or how he thinks bullets going through you is equivalent to being translucent amidst an otherwise tedious flexing verse? That might be the most frustrating thing about this song. If we're comparing this to other hype anthems that have moved for Lil Wayne in the past, it's just kind of underweight. Kind of tepid, and seemingly missing that third verse from Big Sean. It's not terrible by any means, but of all the songs that could have broken through or could have staying power, I don't see this being it, because it's not good. But that ends our week. Best goes to Physical by Dua Lipa, honorable mention to Only the Young by Taylor Swift. Shocker, the pop queens are gonna get it. But the pop queens might also get the worst of the week. It's a little tougher, but I think I gotta go with Nice to Meet You by Meghan Trainor featuring Nicki Minaj, if only on really bad production alone. With this honorable mention on Mamma Mia from Lil Wayne. Sorry, one line I actually like will not save you here. Next week though, honestly the charts seem to be stabilizing a bit, and I don't see any major debuts coming to disrupt things, but anything can happen these days. We'll have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse.